The hall was silent, only the sound of hundreds of soft breaths filling the air. Tall silver pillars lined the chamber, glowing with blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. This was the most sacred day in the alien city. The ceremony of bonds. Every young woman waited for her turn, hands folded tight, eyes wide with fear and hope. The bond scanner stood at the center, a tall crystal machine with a glowing ring at its top. It was said to never make mistakes for generations. It had chosen the perfect partner for each girl. The bond decided families, futures, and power. No one questioned its judgment. To doubt the scanner was to doubt fate itself. Among the waiting crowd was a girl named Syria. Her skin shimmered pale silver, her hair like strands of glowing dusk. She clutched her robe with shaking fingers, trying to calm her racing heart. All her life she had dreamed of this day. She imagined her bond to a strong warrior, maybe a noble or even a guardian of the city. Her family whispered that her bloodline deserved greatness. She had no reason to expect anything less. The priest called her name. The sound echoed. Making her stomach twist, she walked forward slowly, every step heavy as if the floor tried to pull her down. The crowd leaned in, whispers rising like a storm. Syria lifted her chin, hiding the fear inside. She wanted to look brave. Even though her legs trembled, the bond scanner hummed. The crystal ring glowing brighter, Syria stepped into the circle of light. The warmth wrapped around her, making her skin tingle. The machine scanned her body, her mind, her soul. Ancient runes lit up along the pillars, showing her destiny. Her breath caught in her throat. The crowd waited. Everyone knew what was supposed to happen. The scanner would shine with a color, a name would appear, and her chosen bond would step forward. It had always been this way, it had never failed, but this time, the light flickered strangely. A red hue cut across the blue, sharp and unnatural. The hum of the machine grew louder, trembling like thunder. Syria's eyes widened. Her heart pounded so hard she thought she might collapse. Then the word appeared, floating in the air above the scanner. The ancient language shifted and the translation echoed through the hall. Bonded match human. The hall gasped. A wave of shock rolled across the chamber. Elders stood from their seats, robes swishing. Mothers clutched their daughters. Some covered their mouths in horror. Syria froze, her body numb. She could not breathe, her ears rang with the word. Human, no, it had to be a mistake. The scanner never made mistakes, but how could it choose a human? Far across the chamber, near the servants' corner, a man stood stiff. His clothes were rough. His hands calloused. He was no noble, no warrior. He was an off-world worker, one of the humans allowed only to labor in the city. His face was pale compared to the glowing crowd. His dark eyes looked just as stunned as hers. Every gaze turned to him, he swallowed hard. Confusion and fear twisting across his face. He had not come for this. He had no right to stand in this sacred hall, and yet the scanner pointed to him, shining its bright light toward his chest. The priests argued, shouting in disbelief. One of them raised his staff, demanding silence. He spoke in a trembling voice. This cannot be. The scanner must be broken, but the machine pulsed again, louder, fiercer. The word human burned brighter in the air, refusing to fade. The pillars shook as if the chamber itself was alive. The crowd murmured in terror, some shouting curses, others backing away as though Syria carried a disease. Syria's parents lowered their heads in shame. They would not even look at her. Her chest tightened. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run out of the hall and hide. But her feet would not move. She was trapped in the circle of light. Bound by the machine's choice, her eyes flicked toward the human. He stood frozen, hands at his sides, breathing heavily. He looked as if he might bolt at any second. Yet something in his stare caught her. It was not pride, not hunger, not cruelty like she had seen in alien suitors before. It was confusion and a strange spark of defiance. The silence grew heavier. Everyone waited for someone to act. The elders debated in harsh whispers. The priest wiped sweat from his brow. No one dared step forward to claim the girl. No alien wanted the shame of being linked to this mistake. And yet the machine's glow did not fade. The bond had been made, the scanner had spoken. Syria's lips parted, her voice a faint whisper only she could hear. Why me? Her question hung in the air unanswered, her life, her future, her family's honor, all broken in a single moment. And somewhere deep in her chest a cold truth settled in. From this day on, nothing in her world would ever be the same again. The moment the scanner flashed the word human, the great hall turned into a storm. Whispers flew like daggers, sharp and merciless. Every face turned to Saria, and none of those eyes were kind. "She is cursed," someone hissed. "The scanner must be broken," another shouted. "No, the scanner never lies," an elder snapped back. The voices grew louder, mixing into one cruel roar. Saria stood in the middle of the circle, her legs trembling, her heart breaking with every second. She wanted to scream that it was not her fault, that she had not chosen this, but her throat was tight, her voice gone. Her mother covered her face with her veil. Ashamed to be seen, her father's jaw tightened, and he turned away, refusing to look at his daughter. They had once boasted about her bloodline, about how high her bond would rise. Now they could not even meet her eyes. Saria felt her chest tighten as if an invisible chain had wrapped around her lungs. The scanner glowed brighter, as if mocking her. The word human hung in the air like a scar that would never fade. At the far side of the chamber, the human still stood frozen. He had not moved. His hands hung at his sides, rough and scarred from work. He looked out of place in this hall of silver and light. His dark hair and plain clothing made him stand out even more. Some aliens sneered at him, their voices dripping with disgust. "A servant? A laborer? This is an insult to our people." The man swallowed hard. His eyes darted toward the door as if he might run. But then something stopped him. His gaze locked with Saria's for a moment. The noise of the hall seemed to fade. There was confusion in his eyes, yes, but there was also something else. Something that made Saria's heart beat faster, a flicker of strength. The high priest slammed his staff against the floor. The noise silenced the crowd. His voice boomed, shaking with both fear and anger. "This cannot be. The bond between alien and human is forbidden. It is unnatural." Saria's stomach dropped. Forbidden, the word cut deeper than any knife. She wanted to deny it, to say the machine had made a mistake. But the scanner pulsed again, its glow spreading through the chamber, louder, brighter, defiant. The priest's hands trembled. He turned toward the council of elders. "It must be rejected. We cannot allow this." But one of the older counselors shook his head slowly. His voice was low but heavy with truth. "The scanner does not lie. If we reject it, we reject the will of the ancients." The chamber fell silent again. The weight of the words pressed down on everyone. Saria's knees nearly gave way. Her life was no longer her own. She had become the center of something bigger, something terrifying. From the crowd, children whispered, pointing at her. Mothers pulled them close as if she carried a plague. Young men who had once looked at her with interest now sneered and spat at the floor. Her future had shattered before her eyes. Shame burned her cheeks. Her whole body felt hot. She wanted to cover her face, to vanish. But the scanner's light held her still. It would not release her until the bond was acknowledged. Her father finally spoke, his voice cold and sharp. "She is no longer of my blood." The words struck harder than any blade. Saria's breath caught. She turned her head, searching for mercy in her mother's eyes. But her mother only wept silently into her veil, refusing to stand by her. A cruel laugh echoed from the back of the hall. It came from Jarek, a young warrior who had once courted Saria. "To think I wasted even a word on her," he sneered. "Let her live with her human beast." The hall erupted in more laughter, cruel and mocking. Saria's nails dug into her palms until her skin broke. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. If she cried now, she would only give them more to laugh at. And then the human moved. Slowly, carefully, he stepped forward. The crowd recoiled. Some hissed, others shouted for guards, but the man did not stop. His steps echoed through the silence until he stood just outside the glowing circle. For the first time he spoke. His voice was low, steady, carrying through the hall like a quiet storm. "If the scanner chose me, then I won't walk away." Gasps filled the chamber. The priests looked horrified. The elders exchanged furious whispers. Saria's eyes widened, her heart pounded. She had expected him to run, to deny her, but instead he claimed her. The shame twisted into something else, something she did not understand. It was still heavy, still painful. But now there was a spark inside her chest, a spark that whispered that maybe, just maybe, she was not completely alone. But the hall was not done with them. The priest raised his staff high, his voice trembling with anger. "Then let the trial of proof decide. If this bond is real, it will survive. If not, both will be cast out forever." The crowd roared in agreement, eager to see them fail. Saria's heart sank. The shame was not over. It was only the beginning. And as she looked at the human beside her, his jaw set firm, his eyes unflinching, She realized the truth, whether she wanted it or not. Her fate was now bound to his. The chamber echoed with the priest's final words. The trial of proof will decide. For a long moment, silence hung heavy in the air, as if the entire city itself held its breath. Then voices rose again, a storm of anger, whispers, and cruel laughter. Syria stood frozen in the circle of light. Her chest felt hollow, her hands trembled. She had thought the shame of being bound to a human was the worst fate imaginable, but now she understood her true trial was only beginning. Her family had already turned away. Her father's words still cut into her like knives. She is no longer of my blood. She had lost her home, her honor, and her future. Now the council wanted to throw her into a deadly test, a trial meant to crush those who were unworthy. The high priest's eyes narrowed at the human. You step forward boldly, but do you understand what you claim? The human met his stare without flinching. His voice was calm, though his hands were rough and scarred. If she is my bond, then I will not run. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Aliens shook their heads in disbelief. No human had ever spoken with such defiance inside the sacred hall. To most, humans were workers. Servants meant for carrying heavy stones, cleaning the lower tunnels, or tending the machines. They were not equals, and certainly not bondmates. Syria turned her head slowly toward him. Her heart pounded. She wanted to shout at him, to ask why. Why did he not reject her? Why did he not save himself the shame? Yet when she met his gaze, she saw no hesitation. His dark eyes burned with something steady, a fire she had never seen in anyone before. The council of elders whispered among themselves. Their robes shimmered in the light. Their voices were low but sharp. Finally, the oldest of them spoke. His voice carried the weight of centuries. The trial of proof will begin at dawn. If this bond survives, then it is true. If it fails, both will be cast out forever. The word struck Syria like a hammer. Cast out, she knew what that meant: exile. A slow death in the wastelands where no family, no clan, no law would protect them. The guard stepped forward, circling Syria and the human. The priest raised his staff and pointed. Take them to the chamber of waiting. Let them prepare for what they have chosen. Syria's legs finally gave way. The guards pulled her forward, her feet dragging across the polished floor. The crowd jeered as they passed. Some spat at her, others hissed curses. The sound was worse than blades cutting her skin. The human walked beside her, silent but steady, his shoulders straight, his step strong. Syria wanted to hate him, to blame him for not running away when he had the chance. But a part of her felt something else, an ache deep in her chest, a whisper of gratitude she refused to admit. They were thrown into a stone chamber, the heavy door slamming shut behind them. The room was dark, only a faint glow seeping from cracks in the walls. Syria sank against the cold stone. Covering her face with her hands, the shame was too heavy, too cruel. She could not breathe. The human stood quietly for a while. Then he lowered himself to sit across from her. He did not speak immediately. He simply watched, his gaze calm, his presence steady. Finally, Syria broke the silence. Her voice was low, sharp with pain. Why did you not walk away? You could have left me to my fate. The human's reply was simple, his voice steady. Because the scanner chose, and because you looked at me like you wanted someone to stand beside you. Her head snapped up. Her eyes widened. She opened her mouth to deny it, but no words came. She remembered that brief moment in the hall, when his eyes had locked with hers, and for just a breath, she had felt less alone. Her heart twisted. She wanted to tell him that she had never asked for this, that she did not believe in him, that his presence only deepened her shame. But the words caught in her throat. Instead, she whispered, You are human, you will fail, and when you fail, we will both die. He did not flinch. His jaw tightened, and he leaned forward slightly. Then I will not fail. The certainty in his tone startled her. No alien warrior had ever spoken to her like that. Most of them boasted, mocked, or threatened. But this human, this outsider, spoke with quiet strength. It was not arrogance, it was resolve. The chamber grew silent again. Syria's heart battled with itself, torn between fear and something she did not yet understand. As the night deepened, the guards outside prepared the arena for the trial. The whole city would gather to watch at dawn. They would cheer for Syria's failure. They would expect the human to collapse. They would wait for shame and death. Inside the stone chamber, Syria curled against the wall, her mind heavy with dread. But her eyes kept drifting toward the man who sat across from her. His back straight, his gaze unyielding. He did not look like a servant now. He looked like someone who had already chosen his path. And deep inside, though she tried to fight it, Saria felt a flicker of something new, a dangerous thought that maybe, just maybe, the scanner had not made a mistake after all. The first light of dawn crept into the alien city, golden rays breaking through the misty towers. By the time the sun rose, the arena was already full. Rows upon rows of aliens had gathered, their faces hungry for spectacle. Some wanted blood. Others wanted proof that the sacred scanner could never be wrong. But most had come to laugh at the shame of a girl, and the human who dared to stand beside her. Saria stood at the gate of the arena, her hands trembling despite her efforts to stay strong. Her pale silver skin glistened with sweat. Her heart pounded so loud she thought everyone could hear it. Behind her, the human stood silent. His rough clothes were simple, nothing like the armor of alien warriors who usually entered the trial, yet his presence was steady, like a rock in a storm. The high priest raised his staff high. His voice echoed across the arena. By the will of the ancients, the trial of proof begins. If their bond is true, they will survive. If it is false, they will perish. The gates opened with a grinding roar. Dust swirled into the air. Saria swallowed hard as she stepped forward. The human followed, his gaze scanning the barren ground ahead. The arena was no simple battleground. It was designed to break both body and spirit. Towering walls surrounded them. Jagged rocks jutted from the ground, and shadows shifted in the corners where predators lurked. This was not a fight, it was survival. The crowd roared as the first challenge began. From hidden gates, beasts were released, snarling. Four-legged creatures with jaws strong enough to shatter bone. Their eyes glowed with hunger. Their claws scraped against the stone. Saria's knees nearly gave out. She had seen these creatures before, trained to kill. To face even one was deadly. To face many was impossible. She stumbled back, terror choking her. But the human stepped forward. His hands were empty. No weapon in sight. The crowd laughed, certain he would be torn apart in seconds. Yet his eyes narrowed, sharp and focused. He grabbed a broken spear from the ground. Discarded from past trials, his grip tightened, and he moved with surprising speed. The first beast lunged. Saria screamed, but the human twisted aside, driving the spear into its neck. The creature collapsed in a pool of dark blood. The arena gasped. Silence rippled through the crowd. Saria stared at him, stunned. No alien had taught him to fight. No noble had trained him. He was just a worker. And yet he fought with instinct, with a fire that could not be taught. The other beasts circled, growling. The human called out without looking at her. "Stay behind me." Saria's breath shook. She hated the fear in her chest. She hated how weak she felt. But something in his tone, firm, unshaken, made her obey. One by one, the beasts attacked. The human moved like he had been born for this moment. His body was battered, his skin cut, but he refused to fall. Every strike he made was desperate yet precise. By the time the last beast collapsed, the arena floor was painted in blood. The crowd erupted, some in awe, others in fury. No one had expected this. No one had believed a human could survive the first challenge. But the trial was not over. The ground trembled. The second challenge began. The arena shifted, stone panels sliding open to reveal a raging flood of water. A river tore through the arena, pulling rocks and debris with it. Saria staggered, the current nearly sweeping her off her feet. She cried out, reaching for something to hold. The human grabbed her wrist, pulling her toward a rising stone pillar. His grip was iron, refusing to let her be taken with effort. He hauled her onto the pillar. Both of them gasped for breath. Soaked and shivering, Saria stared at him, her chest rising and falling fast. Her voice cracked as she whispered, Why do you not let me go? If I drown, you will be free." The human looked at her. His jaw tight, his reply was simple, yet it burned into her soul. "Because you are mine now, and I don't abandon what is mine." Her heart pounded, shame still clung to her. But now it mixed with something else, something dangerous, a warmth she had never felt before. The water slowly drained away, leaving the arena scarred and broken. The priest's voice thundered above the crowd. "The final test awaits. Only through unity can they survive." The walls cracked open, revealing a massive beast, larger than any Saria had ever seen. Its body was covered in scales. Its eyes glowed with fire. Its roar shook the ground. Saria's knees trembled. She knew they could not win. This was no trial, it was execution. Her eyes blurred with tears, she turned to the human. her voice breaking. "This is the end, we cannot fight this." But the human placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice steady. "Together." Her breath caught. The word echoed in her chest. Together, not alien, not human, just two souls bound by fate. The beast roared again, charging forward. The human raised the broken spear. Saria clenched her fists, summoning every ounce of courage left in her. And for the first time, she did not feel like an outcast. For the first time, she felt like she was not alone. The trial of proof was not yet over, but the choice had been made. They would face it together, or they would fall together. The beast's roar still echoed in Saria's ears long after it vanished back into the shadowed gate. The high priest had ended the challenge before the monster could crush them, claiming that the trial would continue in the wilderness. The crowd had jeered, some furious that the human had not already died, others whispering that maybe, just maybe, the scanner's choice carried truth by nightfall. Saria and the human were led through a broken gate into the wastelands beyond the city. The guards threw them packs with nothing inside but dried roots and a skin of water. Then the heavy gate slammed shut, sealing them outside. The wilderness stretched endless. A dark sky hung overhead, filled with cold stars. The wind carried dust across cracked ground. No walls protected them here, no family, no priest, only the two of them. Saria hugged her arms tight, shivering in the chill air. Her fine robes were torn from the earlier trial. Her silver skin glowed faintly under the moonlight, making her an easy target for predators. She hated that, hated being exposed. She glanced at the human, wondering if he felt the same fear, but he walked with steady steps, scanning the land around them, his breathing calm, his posture strong. Saria frowned. He looked as though this strange land did not scare him at all. At last, when the cold grew too sharp, the human stopped near a cluster of rocks. He dropped the pack and crouched low. Searching the ground, Saria tilted her head, confused. "What are you doing?" she asked softly. "Looking for dry wood," he answered. His tone was calm, almost casual, as though he had done this many times before. "Wood? For what?" she pressed. He glanced up at her, his dark eyes glinting under the moonlight. "For fire." Saria's breath caught. Fire? In her world, fire was dangerous, untamed, forbidden except in the great forges of the city. No alien girl had ever lit her own flame. That was the work of machines and masters, not of hands. She almost laughed at the absurdity of his words, but she did not laugh when she saw him kneel down, striking stone against stone until sparks leapt into the dry grass. Her lips parted as the first flame flickered, trembling in the wind before growing stronger. Within minutes he had built a small, steady fire. Its glow pushed back the dark. Its warmth wrapped around them like a living shield. Saria could not move, her eyes fixed on the flame. It was so simple, so fragile, and yet so powerful. The cold retreated, the shadows bent back. Her heart trembled. "You made this," she whispered. The human nodded. He did not boast, did not explain. He simply fed the fire, his rough hand steady as he placed more wood. The flames danced higher, painting his face in gold and red. Saria sat close, hugging her knees. The warmth seeped into her bones. For the first time since the ceremony, she felt a strange comfort. It was small, fragile, but real. She glanced at him from the corner of her eye. He looked tired, his arms scratched. His body bruised from the trial, yet he sat straight, watching the fire as if guarding it, guarding her. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the crackle of flames. At last Saria spoke, her voice low. "In my world, fire is dangerous. Only masters are allowed to hold it. If a girl touched it, she would be punished." The human turned his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "Then your world keeps you weak," he said. Not cruelly, but with quiet truth. Saria stiffened. The words pricked her pride. But she could not deny them. For all her people's laws and rituals, she had stood helpless while he had fought beasts, while he had built this fire. Her throat tightened, she whispered, more to herself than to him. "I was supposed to bond with a warrior, someone noble. Not you." The human's eyes flicked to hers. His voice remained steady. "And yet here I am." The words struck deeper than she expected. She wanted to argue, wanted to push him away, but instead, she lowered her gaze to the flames. Her heart beat faster, not from shame this time, but from something she could not name. As the night deepened, the wind howled outside their small shelter of rocks. Shadows moved in the distance, hungry eyes watching. Saria tensed, ready for an attack, but the fire's glow held the predators back. They circled but did not cross the line of light. Saria's breath trembled. She realized the truth. Without the fire, they would have been torn apart in the dark. Without the human, she would already be dead. She turned to him again, whispering so softly that even the wind almost stole her words. Maybe. The scanner was not wrong. The human did not reply. He only looked at her for a moment, then back to the fire, yet in that silence, Saria felt something shift inside her, something fragile but strong. Like the flame before her eyes for the first time, she no longer felt only shame, she felt hope. And as the fire burned through the night, Saria understood that her world had already begun to change. Not because of laws, not because of priests, but because of the bond that had been forged in the dark. The fire still glowed when the night deepened. Saria sat close to it, her silver skin warmed by the flickering light. She had never known comfort like this. Safety born not from walls or guards, but from one man and the flame he created. For the first time, the weight of her shame felt lighter. The human sat nearby, silent, sharpening the broken spear he had carried since the trial. His movements were steady, calm. Every scrape of stone against wood echoed in the night. Saria watched him in secret, her heart heavy with questions. Why did he protect her? Why did he not abandon her when it would have been so easy? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden sound. Footsteps. Faint but unmistakable, her body stiffened. Her eyes darted to the shadows. The firelight danced against the rocks, and for a moment she thought it was another beast. But then she saw the glint of steel. Figures emerged from the dark, cloaked and armed. Their faces hidden beneath masks. Saria gasped, recognizing them not as predators but as people, rivals from her own city. Warriors who had once laughed at her in the hall. The leader stepped forward, his voice sharp with cruelty. So, the cursed girl hides in the wilderness with her human beast, he mocked. We could not allow this bond to live. Saria's blood ran cold. Her heart pounded. She knew these men. They had despised her since the ceremony. They believed her bond had shamed the city. Now they had come to erase it with blood. The human rose to his feet, his spear ready. He said nothing, but his eyes burned like fire. His body tensed, muscles ready to strike. Saria wanted to warn him, to tell him these were trained warriors. But the words stuck in her throat. The leader sneered. You think you can protect her, human? You are nothing. We will kill you first, then finish her. The warriors rushed forward, blades gleaming in the firelight. The air filled with the clash of steel and the sound of heavy boots pounding against the earth. The first attacker swung at the human, but he moved swiftly, ducking low and driving the spear into the man's side. The warrior cried out, collapsing. Saria gasped, her eyes wide. The human fought not with elegance, but with raw strength, every strike filled with defiance. Another warrior lunged at Saria. She screamed, stumbling back. But before the blade could touch her, the human slammed into the attacker, dragging him to the ground. His fists struck like hammers, blood splattering the rocks. Saria's chest tightened, terror and awe mixing inside her. He was bleeding now, cuts on his arms and across his face, yet he did not falter. He fought like a storm, refusing to fall, refusing to let them reach her. The leader stepped forward, larger and stronger than the others. His blade gleamed as he raised it high. He struck down hard. The human caught the blow with the shaft of his broken spear, the wood cracking under the force. Saria's breath caught. She wanted to run to him, but fear locked her legs. The leader snarled, You are weak, human. You will die here. But the human's voice came back like steel. Not while she lives. With a roar, he twisted the spear, breaking the warrior's balance. Then he drove the jagged end into the man's chest. The leader fell, gasping, the firelight reflecting in his wide eyes. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of flames. The remaining warriors froze, fear replacing their rage. One by one, they backed away into the shadows, disappearing into the wilderness. Saria's breath shook as she dropped to her knees. Her hands pressed against her chest. Her whole body trembled. The human staggered, blood dripping from his wounds. His shoulders heaved with every breath, yet his eyes found hers, steady even in pain. Saria crawled toward him, her voice breaking. You shielded me. You bled for me. He sank to the ground near the fire, gripping his side where blood soaked his shirt. His reply was quiet. I told you, I don't abandon what's mine. Her tears finally fell. They streamed down her cheeks, not just from fear, but from something else, something she had never felt before. She reached out, her trembling hands touching his arm gently. In that moment, she no longer saw him as a servant, or an outcast, or a shame upon her family. She saw him as her protector, her bond, the one who had chosen to stand even when the whole world turned against them. The fire burned brighter. As if answering the truth in her heart, Syria whispered, her voice fragile but certain, "Maybe, I am yours too." The human did not speak. His eyes closed as exhaustion pulled at him. But the faintest hint of a smile touched his lips, and Syria sat beside him, guarding the fire, guarding him. For the first time, she understood this was not weakness, this was strength. The kind her people had never taught her to see. The night was far from over. Enemies still lurked, danger still waited. But in the glow of the fire, Syria knew one thing with certainty. The bond was real, and nothing in her world would ever be the same again. The dawn came slowly, painting the wasteland in pale gold. Syria sat awake beside the dying fire, her eyes fixed on the man who slept. His wounds were wrapped with torn cloth from her robe. His breathing was steady but heavy. She had watched over him the whole night, guarding him the way he had guarded her. When the gates of the arena opened again, the guards found them alive, scarred but unbroken. Gasps echoed through the watching crowd. No one had expected this, not the priests, not the warriors, not even Syria's family who stood in the highest row. Her father's face was pale with disbelief. Her mother's hands trembled beneath her veil. The human staggered to his feet when the guards ordered them forward. Syria rose with him, her hand brushing against his arm to steady him. The gesture was small, but the crowd saw it, and whispers erupted like wildfire. The high priest stepped forward, his staff glowing with holy runes. His eyes blazed with anger and fear. "You should be dead," he spat. "No bond between alien and human can survive. It is against the order of the stars." But even as he spoke, the scanner atop the arena pulsed to life. The crystal ring shone brighter than ever before. A deep hum filled the air, echoing through the bones of everyone present. Syria's heart raced. The scanner had chosen once already, and now it rose again to speak. The light enveloped her and the human, wrapping them in a glow that no one could deny. Ancient runes spiraled into the air, blazing across the sky. The translation echoed through every mind. Confirmed bond. Human and Syria, unbreakable. The arena fell silent. The crowd froze. Some gasped, others dropped to their knees. Even the priests stumbled back, their faces pale. The machine had never spoken twice. Its verdict was final, eternal, undeniable. Syria's eyes blurred with tears. She turned her face toward the human. He stood beside her, battered and bloodied, but unbroken, his jaw tight. His gaze steady. In that moment, he was not a servant, not an outcast. He was her bond, chosen by fate itself. Her father's voice broke the silence. He shouted from the stands, his voice full of rage and shame. "No, this is a curse. She is no daughter of mine. Cast her out." But the scanner pulsed louder. A beam of light struck the ground. Silencing him, the crowd gasped. The will of the ancients had spoken, and to deny it was blasphemy. The elders stood slowly, their robes brushing the ground. Their leader bowed his head, his voice trembling. "The bond is true. We cannot deny it." The crowd erupted again, but this time not in laughter. The whispers were mixed, fear, awe, and something new. A respect that no one had expected for the first time. Syria saw heads turning not with disgust, but with doubt in their own beliefs. The human reached for her hand, and though her body trembled, she did not pull away. Their fingers locked. The crowd gasped again. For an alien girl to hold a human's hand was unthinkable. But Syria no longer cared. Her voice rose, soft but steady. The scanner chose, the ancients chose. "I will not be ashamed." Her words carried further than she expected. The silence that followed was heavier than stone. No one dared to answer, not even the priests. The guards stepped aside, bowing their heads. They had no right to touch them now. The bond was sacred, unbroken, stronger than law, as Syria and the human walked out of the arena together. The city behind them erupted in whispers that would spread through every hall, every home, and every world beyond. A bond had been made where none should exist. A bond that defied tradition, fear, and hatred. Syria glanced at the human beside her. Her heart was still heavy, still afraid of what came next, but deep inside, she felt something new, a strength she had never known. It was not born from her family, not from her city, not from her people's laws. It came from the man who had stood with her against beasts, against enemies, against the world. She whispered so softly only he could hear, "My world has already changed, because of you." And for the first time, the human smiled fully. His lips curved, his eyes softened. And in that smile, Saria saw the truth. The scanner had not made a mistake. The bond was real, unbreakable, destined to change more than just her life. It would change the city, the people, and perhaps the galaxy itself. As they walked into the rising sun, Saria knew the future would not be easy. Enemies would rise, traditions would fight against them. But she no longer feared, for she was no longer alone. And the world, her world, would never be the same again.